It's a beautiful morning. It's a beautiful morning. In the street. Oh, there we are. Um, man, I feel tired. Um, all right, I'm not going to answer that. I was going to answer it if I weren't live, but since I'm live, I'm not going to answer it. Um, let's see, Justin Dollar. I thought you said you were trying to get home from New York yesterday. Doesn't look. No, I had a meeting today, but and maybe another one tonight. I still got to go tomorrow, so hopefully I'll get out of here. Although uh, um, it's beautiful, I tell you, it's beautiful this time of year. I always love New York when I come, but yeah, I don't know how realistic would it be to live here. I think you'd really need to live in a nice place. You know? All right, just in case. Just in case I have to write down shares, like I have it. All right, so I've been walking so much, my back is doing a little bit of barking at me, but it's so gorgeous. I love it. Um, so I don't have particularly an overwhelming agenda to talk about today, but for those of you who were in our gold company, I can talk about that. Um, I think any of you who have been listening to me, and I will certainly say for myself, I'm not surprised at the sell off in Next Trip. And I think it provides an opportunity to acquire the stock, but you have to understand that the machines, it's just machines, they're relentless. I also think that Lynn Partners is part of of collaborators. You're never going to find proof of it. It's my opinion. Uh, and they just function to steal money. Of course, they've got it all justified in their head because attorneys wrote it up and supposedly they've disclosed it. And well, the CEO signed it. But I think in the case of Nextrip, it's going to mean that you have a chance to make a lot of money owning Nextrip stock. Hopefully, we'll have enough time to make some money in Railtown and maybe acquire a position in Nextrip. Tomorrow at around approximately 4 o'clock, um, shortly after the market closes, I will have an interview with um, Bill Kirby and with Richard Marshall, and probably both Richard and myself will let Bill do a lot of the talking. And I think you're going to find out. My guess is you're going to find out a couple of things. One, that I don't know this. I'm going to ask him. I don't know it because I can't find it. But I bet there is a way that they can buy out or pay off this note without issuing shares. It's not clear from what's filed, at least not to me. But man, it's such complicated documents. They call it disclosure, but I call it obfuscation. Trump should say, hey, if you do one of these deals, you got to announce it on one page, and you got to make it clear that if you deal with Lynn Partners, the hedge funds out of Toronto are going to start selling stock that doesn't exist. They may do it intraday, they might do it intra-hour, they might do it intra-minute, but they're going to do it, and they're going to drive it downward, and they're going to go back and forth today on Nextra today. The stock did apparently, if you can believe these numbers, you can't believe any of it. It did over 400,000 in volume. Nobody's selling. Nobody's selling. It's all fake. But our our market, Dina Friedman is ultimately responsible for the Nasdaq. She allows it. But you know what? She's the fifth most powerful woman on Wall Street. So she can waddle around with that for a while. But I tell you what, she doesn't care about the companies on her exchange. Um, so it's 432,000 shares today. The low on the day was 90 cents. It opened at 127. So let's just pick a number. Let's go with 125 and let's go with 90 cents. I'm not saying they got all that, but they do a lot of rapid fire lit exchange, dark exchange. But let's say they captured that would be 125 down to 90 cents. That's 35 cents. Let's say they captured 25 cents today. And let's say they did it on 400,000 shares. That's 100 grand. Now, obviously, I'm using a broad brush, um, but I would submit to you don't see all the volume. It's entirely possible that Lynn Partners and its cohorts made 100 grand today, shorting the stock. But it'll never show up because at the end of the day, they'll say it's net long, or they've done a derivative. So they've got synthetic shares to sell. Whatever the heck the lie that the attorneys help them write, uh, technical, technically true, but morally a lie and a workaround on the intent of security law and a workaround on the intent of disclosure. To me, it's just a lie. Lies. They probably made 100 grand today. And what protects them? What protects them? The Lynn note. That's what protects them. And that's the expensive part about Lind having to follow the rules. Uh, uh, the F over there at Lind Partners, I forgot his name right now, Jeff Easton. He doesn't have to follow rules. He just has to disclose. And he can tell you, I'm not shorting. But they started shorting before the note went into effect. Whoever they is, it's probably the toad. And they did it today. And they'll keep doing it. They're relentless. It should be out. It is outlawed. but no one follows. It might as well be legal. But anyway, Lynn Park, Next Trip, the argument I heard, and we'll get some clarity on that, is that these deep pocketed backers that Next Trip has couldn't add more money to the company pending, you know, material news. And so this is a bridge. This is a bridge financing. There's nothing else out there. There's no brokerage firm. There's no legitimate lender. These are shysters. These are out of the Merchant of Venice. These are usurious lenders. They should be outlawed. But technically, they worked around the rules. And so technically, it's all okay. But it's funny. Lynn Partners makes money when every single one of the companies they support loses money. Every single one. They make money when it goes down. That's same with Wydell, same with Yorkville, same with the Kramers. It's really a truly, it's not a flawed financial system. It's a hole in the bottom of the boat and it's got to be fixed. But anyway, Next Trip, in order to finance their growth quickly, had to go somewhere. And they couldn't go to their own investors, as I understand it, because it would bring up issues of whether or not those investors were taking advantage of their knowledge of material, non public information. So Next Trip's in the box. They have to always announce everything. They have to do these crap financings, although they got a lot of protection in this note. We'll quickly go over how they can repay. I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on the Lynn note. We all know the mechanics, um, but it gives the criminals, in my judgment, the ability to strip mine another good company, and it's just. But in the case of Next Trip, I think it's going to have a finite period. They better have their fun because it could end as soon as the next announcement or the next series of announcements. My guess, this ability to sell stock they don't own in the darkness, in the lit exchange, the back and forth, the conspiracy to print money while retail investors are seeking legitimate investments. I think it goes on and you know probably until October, maybe longer, but not much longer. Not much longer. And it can change anytime. I don't know what announcements are coming, but remember, Next Trip has set up um, their strategy over the last three some years, more than that, but they've been really working on it. And they've brought together the assets they bought, the the technology they have. But I think the most important thing and the thing you have to look for is they've bought a content creation machine and they've bought they used to call it eyeballs, but now they've bought, I guess they call it impressions or something. It's always some new term so that you feel like Wall Street is full of a bunch of brilliant people. They're not brilliant, they're just greedy. Um, uh, advertising, advertising. So they're, yes, it's about bespoke bookings and we can fly off to, you know, uh, Jamaica, and maybe we can book at one of the naked beaches at what's it called? I went on one of those. I didn't go to the naked. But I went on a trip that it ended. It ended with a little bit of heartbreak, not because of me, but uh, at one of these gross sandals places. Horrible. I didn't enjoy it. It's like, what's the point? I'd rather go somewhere and walk around downtown. But anyway, you could set up destinations, but that's not where the profit's going to be. Profit's going to be on the advertising, just like everything. That's how Google makes it. That's how everybody makes it on the content. You should see how much money YouTube's making on my videos. I'm not. I don't. I gave up on monetizing them because I got, $100 or $75. So actually, it was a lot lower. I would get $100 whenever it came because you need a minimum to get paid out, something like that. But man, it's not worth it making you have to watch advertisements, and I just get next to nothing. So I don't monetize them, but YouTube's whole model is on advertisements and the whatever they call it now, impressions, eyeballs. Um, Look for that with Nexttrip. I think they've set up a machine. I was talking to an investor today about it here in New York, face to face, and his opinion is that you're going to see the culmination of all the work they've done. You're going to start seeing revenue, 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 and that's why I think buying the stock at $1.17 is going to be highly profitable. But you got to acknowledge that maybe for the next I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, that Lynn Partners and their friends are going to hammer it. They're going to steal, and it's all under the auspices of, well, we're providing financing. No, they're not. They create a product that they can short against, to put it bluntly. The fact that they do it at hyper speed and they cross it and they lie about it, whoever's doing it, you can't even find it. They don't file anything. And that it's off exchange, it's off country, it's off continent. It doesn't make it okay. Doesn't make it okay. But they do it. And Adina Friedman doesn't care as she parades around in her high heels and her power as a woman on Wall Street. She's just a fill in to allow this to happen. She'll get a job at one of the big firms, big hedge funds. She's set for life. While you struggle to understand, why don't our financial markets work anymore? It's inexcusable. But anyway, I think it is, and we've done a little due diligence on Nexttrip. And I think this case is a setup where we can make money against the system. The one thing to be careful with at a dollar, the dollar number for Nexttrip, it has very little meaning. Um, Getting delisted is an event of default, apparently, which is standard. But Nexttrip has a chance. I I didn't look it up before I went live, but I think it's as much as 6 months. It might be 5 months. It's some period of time that they can cure that. So that delisting, I don't think is going to happen if my understanding of what could be ahead for Nexttrip is accurate. I don't think they get delisted before the stock price is much, much higher. But the other one to look out for, and I think they tried to do it today, they went down to 90 cents. If this gets under 83 cents for 10 consecutive days, that is an event of default. and they can't control that one. And then people don't believe me. They just don't believe me. I tell them, don't do business with Lynn Partners. You're playing with fire. But if they get it down there, I don't think it's going to happen. By the way, I don't. 10 weeks is 10 days is 2 trading weeks. That Labor Day. I guess technically it's about 2 weeks, but I really would expect um, that there will be significant announcements at Next Trip over the next 2 weeks to 2 months. That I don't see it 10 days under 83 cents. I don't see it. But just remember, if you're buying it, that's always a possibility that they try it to run it down in a spike. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think buying it here at $1.17. Um, I know some of you think Chris Lacoisier is off his rocker because he's always bullish. I'm teasing him, but I think he thinks the stock will be $2 in, let's say, 2 weeks. I think he told me 2 weeks. Certainly very soon. I think he thinks it'll be $2. I don't know. That's a prediction, not a promise. But I think it's a great opportunity to buy because when you're doing these, you got to understand management has no choice. If they want to fund their project, they have to go to these Shylarks, these merchant of Venice attorneys. They have to go to them. I guess it's Shylock. They have no choice if they don't want to violate um, insider trading rules. But you know what they did? They did design a product they can exit. Um, I think they're fully aware of the potential um, default risks, event of default risk. And I think the big thing is I don't think they would have taken the financing. They would have gone back to those weasels, the Kramers, uh, for small notes again and again. If they didn't know, they wouldn't have gone to the granddaddy of the sleight of hand on Wall Street, Lynn Partners. They wouldn't have gone unless they knew. This is my opinion. I can't prove it. Unless they knew they were on the verge of major ramp ups in revenue. And that's what we're that's the reason to buy it. Yes, we know the cesspool that Lynn Partners is, but we know the commitment of management and what they built. And they can, one revenue deal that is definitive, not some sort of thing. Hey, we just signed up with the I don't know, Instagram, and we have a lot of impressions, and it may lead to advertising. That's not going to do it. But if you get an announcement that um, uh, what's another one? What's another service? Um, TikTok. I don't even know if they have advertising. Let's say if you get YouTube. I know about YouTube. You get YouTube, and let's say um, some advertiser backs you on YouTube. Who would it be? I don't know. Delta Airlines or something, and they're gonna pay for advertising, and they announce it. You know, let's say they say I'm making it up. I have no idea if they have a deal with Delta Airlines or not. Well, let's say Delta Airlines offers them. And again, I'm making that up, but you know, $500,000 a month for a year in advertising. I totally made it up, but something like that, specific term, advertising revenue, which is like 80% or more cash flow, the computers would back off and buying would come in, institutional buying would come in, and some of these opportunistic, cowardly shorts that go along with everything Lynn does because they never lose, they'll have to cover. And you might be surprised. I'm not telling you about next trip that it's going to be a short squeeze, but you might be surprised at how quickly there's a not only a retreat, but a full flight of panic on the parts of the underfunded shorts that just join in. But none of this is nothing that we didn't expect. None of it's something that should surprise any of us. What the key is, what's the way out? And I think it's specific revenue. That's the only thing. Specific. Announcing that uh, you know we added Conrad Hilton to our board, or um, you know we're going to sponsor the Conway Twitty uh, concert tour. None of that kind of thing is going to make the stock go up, not sustainably. Specifics, and you know what? One I'd love the best of all. This is the one I'd love the best of all. But if you want to be internally consistent with the argument, they would have to wait if there's material information that is preventing insiders from funding the company right now. They'd have to wait till that material information comes out. But if it's so significant, whatever it is, well, it must be something good. What would be great is after that one of the deep pocketed guys or girls um, gives the company what uh, $1.2 million for 300,000 shares. You can do the arithmetic. Um, in other words, they overpay according to the stock price, but they put 1.2 million in the treasury, which would cover 3 months of the pay or more of the payments to the fat flyer at Lynn Partners and his small coterie of, in my judgment, criminal uh, cohorts who spread mayhem and destruction and ruin on American shareholders and stocks, and they're proud of themselves. They're nothing but SCUM as far as I'm concerned. But I think Bill Kirby's smarter than they are. I hope he is, but I believe he is. And I believe he's going to blow any underfunded shorts out of the water. That's my prediction. I don't know about Chris Laquassier's $2 in 2 weeks, although maybe he didn't say that. I might be misremembering what he said. So I think it's a great opportunity to continue adding to positions in next trip. You don't have to go overboard. Uh, just remember on my interview with Richard Marshall when I asked him, could next trip be worth 2 billion? I don't know where I got that number from, but that's what I asked him. He didn't say no, but he came back with the comparable of Fora at 1 billion. Well, next trip's got 15 million shares outstanding, and as I read the prepayment, the prepayment rights in the contract. If they exercise their prepayment right, Lind has a right to take a third in stock. And I guarantee you that all this selling today, it was just 400,000 shares, but they go back and forth. So if it's net 100,000 shares is still short, it's against their ability to do just that, up to maybe 1.5 million shares. But Next Trip can just decide to pay the monthly amount and not prepay. Or, there may be the one thing they don't file at the SEC is the final document signed. And they don't, there's a lot of, I don't know what to call them, these little exhibits and addendums that they don't file. So there may be some escape valve there. But what I can see, in order to prepay this note, um, they're going to have to issue about 1.5 million shares to Lind at a low price. And Lind has the million shares and warrants. And I think this shorting right now is against that million shares and warrants. They create a derivative with it, and they can do all this fun and games without risk. And how do they get rewarded? How does Lind Partners get rewarded? Right up front and when the stocks go down. They're slimy, greedy Shylocks. But hey, sure they pay their taxes in Chicago or New York or Toronto, wherever I'm sure they do. I'm sure they help Ma'am Dami. Anyway, let's move on to other things. We'll talk quickly, I guess, about Finger. There's some news. And I don't have any new news on Railtown. We're continuing to be in the non-quiet period, quiet period, and the blackout of action up in Canada. I don't know why Trump bothers putting a tariff on anything. Um, you know, what can Canada do? Nothing quickly, nothing. I'm surprised they have a country. There's absolutely nothing that Canada can organize and put into effect without committee meetings and then circling back and then making sure that everyone on the committee looks like they came from the United States of America and it's a fair representation. I can't imagine that there are ratios in Canada, which is a lily white country, to the point that they have on all their advertisements, all their glossies, all of their DEI and woke presentations. But that's what they do. So everything's got to balance out. And if you don't have people trained to do it, they don't have length of service, they don't have experience. In other words, they're not old, straight white males who have legacy of experience and knowledge. All the better. Just put a 25-year-old in. It meets a quota. Well, you got to deal with that. You got to deal with committees and a bunch of people that don't really have the leadership qualities. So they got to cover their butts. So they get the lawyers in. The lawyers are all the same. They're all these young people that are there because of their outward exhibits, not the content of their character, as Martin Luther King called for. It's their outside uh, uh, characteristics. So how does that? How does Canada get anything done? Well, obviously they don't. They had a head start. Canada's sitting in a beautiful position, unique in the world. They've got great institutions of higher education. They've got almost unlimited supplies of energy, particularly if you add in hydropower. But I bet geothermal, and that they've got oil, natural gas, they've got cold weather, cold water, and and nobody lives in the country. What do they have? Two big cities? Maybe one big city? And the rest of it's all wide open. They can build data centers wherever they want to. They could get ahead on the world. They can become one, that's their stated goal. They can become the world's third most powerful AI state, but they can't get their act together. They just can't do it. They've got a lot of men up there, and I think it's largely men doing it, like John Ruffalo and Mike Norbrega and Corey and Marwan, working hard to break things through. But you know what leaders do? They just go get it done. But up in Canada, you can't do that. You got, well, hold on a minute. Got to run it through this committee that's a third of your age and an eighth of your qualification. And with no leadership, it's all by consensus. Got to make sure everybody's in agreement. Make sure that Beverly got an award and Zoe got an award and Sam got an award and let's make sure that there's a speaking engagement for um, I don't know, Muhammad, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Muhammad. I'm talking about a person named it, and you just don't get anything done. It's just like an extended campus. It's like an extended being at school, and nothing gets done in Canada. So there's nothing to talk about with Railtown. I do think that that's going to end as soon as Bell Hive catches up with the head start that TELUS had. TELUS will be ready to act, but it doesn't matter. We don't care about TELUS. We don't care about Hive. Frankly, we don't care if Canada achieves its goal of being one of the world's top AI providers, superpowers. We don't need all that. All we care about is when those attorneys come back from vacation and they finally organize signatures on the bottom of, I don't know, a dozen, I'm guessing, a dozen uh, uh, licensing agreements, a dozen sales contracts, a dozen consulting agreements, a dozen data centers worldwide. Then we don't need to deal with Mark Carney and Trudeau and what Katy Perry's latest thoughts are and whether or not an obscure tribe in some part of the Northwest Territories is getting fairly treated as compared to their counterparts in Toronto. We don't. We as investors, once this breaks out, we don't have to deal with Canada anymore. Canada can deal with Canada. It's unbelievable, though. It's absolutely unbelievable. But I don't have anything to say about news with Railtown. Uh, I do think that'll change after Labor Day. We're very close. We're very close. Um, I'd love to get an interview with Total Metals. My phone, I can't locate people's telephone numbers because my phone is missing, but I'll try maybe next week uh, again to see if I can get an interview with him. I think that's a great opportunity. Um, I think mining and oil and gas and hard assets, and frankly, AI too. I was in a meeting today on this gold company and this really smart PhD, very, very compelling. But and of course, they all go to Columbia. They're all smart, smart, credentialed. But he said that he spends hours researching and he uses AI, and it's changing his ability to build a company. He does a lot of work with, uh, in this case, with gold, but he's also worked with uh, breakthrough medical, sort of tiny medical, I guess almost nano medical um, solutions. And AI is going to change everything too. Um, so I look forward to when everybody gets back to school that we'll start having information and we can actually talk about things. But I can't change Canada, and I don't think anybody could. They're very privileged up in Canada, as we are here, as all the young people going to school and voting here, all very privileged. But with their privilege, um, I guess they tried to get rid of dissatisfaction in life. And life, as glorious as it is, like today, it's so beautiful. There's still things to worry about and things to deal with, and nothing's ever perfect. But with all this um, unbelievable bounty in Canada and the United States, some people anyway, still have the opportunity to be jealous and miserable, and we've got to fix it. And the fix is a nightmare. Anyway, I look forward to when Railtown breaks out of Canada. Um, I don't think any amount of white papers in Canada or exhortations that we've got to keep our IP in Canada and our revenue in Canada, it all makes sense to old white straight men. Doesn't make sense to the committees, and the committees run Canada. Sorry for my lecture. That's just how I see it. All right, so Patience, somebody just sent this to me. Patience pays at Patience Swings on Twitter says, next trip at $1.18 from today's PR. Yeah, I have today's PR to go over with you. The more I read the last sentence, the more I like it. Forbes reports that 81% of Gen Z are unhappy with white straight men and feel like they live in a patriarchy and that men are the problem. That's not what it says. It says Forbes reports that 81% of Gen Z and millennial travelers plan getaways based on what they have seen on screen. Well, if you walk around New York, everybody's staring at their screens. Everybody. They walk right into you. And then they hit you and they go, "Oh," it's like, do you watch everybody they're on their screens as they're so it doesn't surprise me that 81% of a generation is basing their decisions on what they see on screens. They don't read anymore. While 53% of travelers said their desire to take a set jetting, what is a set jetting trip, had increased during the prior year. Expedia estimates that screen inspired travel, Expedia, could represent a potential $8 billion industry in the United States alone. $8 billion. Well, of course, everything we talk about with Railtown makes that number look small, but 8 billion is a big number. I don't know how to translate it in any metrics for next trip. We can ask Bill Kirby tomorrow. But the obvious metric, I'm just looking at this, if Expedia believes that it's an $8 billion industry and Expedia is chasing it, and Expedia spends advertising dollars, and Expedia wants to get to the youngsters, and Next Trip has a wide audience of youngsters, well, that's how I'd make that link. All right, so I just got that. I don't think I got anything else. No. All right, so let me go through just it's. I think it's 5 pages. It's not very long of how Lynn Partners can get removed from this note, and then we'll go through the news release, and then we'll go through Fingers news release, and then I'll go to your comments. Survey says, but that's the core of the Next Trip opportunity is the machines operate on a certain checklist and then they're relentless. And they make money every day. Like I just told you, they may have made 100, 150 grand today. And it could be more than that, depending on how they are able to take advantage of the volume. That's their goal. Very short term, very lucrative. And they cheat, they break the law, they never get in trouble. The worst thing is Mark Bazile represents some lawsuit. They get slapped on the hand. Mark buys another guitar, and shareholders get wiped out, and the Kramers can go back to Kraming. It's lovely, lovely system. But in the case of Next Trip, all you need is, like I say, definitive revenue numbers. It's over. Or you need some sort of takeout of this note that makes the denominator fixed again. Right now, the denominator isn't fixed. That should be the slogan for our channel. Make denominators fixed again. That should be our slogan. Make denominators fixed again. That would be, or make denominators great again. All right, let's look at what this is. All right, that doesn't. Okay, so how can Next Trip get out of the Lind document? Um, so here's the way out. Section 1.41 permits prepayment after the earlier of a registration statement being declared effective by the SEC, or the date the shares can be resold under they lift the legend, so that's 6 months out. The the registration statement could be October 19th, but it could be sooner. So the note says declared effective. So if it's declared effective before 90 days, that's fine. So what does that mean? There's three ways out. Number one, route one, they can get the S3 declared as effective sooner, and that's the best one. It was filed on August 19. A resale shelf for a well trodden structure often clears in 3 to 5 weeks with no comments. And issuers next trip can request an acceleration. If the SEC declares the S3 effective in mid September, the gate is open right then. And that doesn't, then they don't have to wait until October 19th. So that's the cleanest time to prepay it. Um, but there's two little nagging items in the stock purchase agreement, section 9(1)(a). Every amendment and quote, each request for acceleration of effectiveness, unquote, must go to Lind. Do you see why I think they're a bunch of greedy fat pigs? And its counsel 5 business days before filing, and the company, quote, shall incorporate all reasonable comments provided by the investor or its counsel, unquote. So then Lynn can query it. Unbelievable. It's just why anyone would sign this crap. SPA section 92C, Lynn's counsel reviews amendments 3 business days ahead, and the company shall, quote, not file any document to which such counsel reasonably objects. Good Lord. Why anyone would dance with Lynn? It must be like getting into a marriage and feeling trapped immediately. Awful. So the lender has visibility and a soft veto over the acceleration request. It's not really a bar, but it means Lind will know a prepayment is coming before the notice arrives, which is another reason to negotiate a waiver first. I don't, maybe Bill Kirby is able to negotiate a waiver with the porcine uh, Jeffrey Lind. All right. Route 2 is not available. The note closed July 21, and the Rule 144 holding period is 6 months. I told you that. So it's roughly January. And then the Route 3, and this is an interesting one. Somebody could buy the note from Lind instead of prepaying it. But wouldn't it be amazing if one of the big boys or girls bought it and then just retired it with no penalty? But the problem is Lind has to approve of it. I don't see Lind doing that. It's far more lucrative for Lind to work in concert with a bunch of offshore criminals and get kickbacks than to follow the rules, in my judgment. Section 1.7, quote, this note may be transferred or sold subject to the provisions of section 5(9) of this note or pledged, hypothecated, or otherwise granted as security by the holder, unquote. A purchase of the note from Lind is a transaction between Lind and a buyer. There's no restriction on Lind's right to sell. Well, they're not going to do it. That's my opinion. But anyway, that's an option. They could sell the note Lind could sell the note. But down here, the caveat, Lind has no obligation to sell. Um, and obviously to get it done might be higher than par. And then you can get a waiver. You can negotiate an early waiver. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe Bill Kirby can work magic as long as quote an instrument is written by signed, sorry, by both parties. So those are the ways to get out of this note. And I re-asked it. I said, "Is there any way to pay it without Lynn converting a third?" Um, Under section 1.4, no, but there's three ways around the section entirely. Um, Section 1.42 is automatic and unconditional. If the maker, that's Nextrip, elects to prepay this note pursuant to this section 1.4, the holder, that's Lynn Partners, shall have the right upon written notice to the maker within 5 business days following the holder's receipt of a prepayment notice to convert up to 1/3 of the outstanding principal amount. And the company's obligation is stated in the strongest terms in the note. Quote, upon delivery of a prepayment notice, the maker, Nextrip, irrevocably and unconditionally agrees to, within 5 business days of receiving a prepayment conversion notice, issue the applicable conversion shares. There is no partial prepayment option. Section 1.41 is, quote, all but not less than all, unquote. No carve out, no condition, no way to structure around it. There's no way. So I think, you know, their goal is to stay under 20 million shares. Well, at a billion, you can do that arithmetic. I guess that's $50 a share. But what if this happens and it expands a bit? Let's say it goes to 25 million shares. Well, that arithmetic still leads to $40 a share. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. I just hate it. I just hate that this fat flyer gets rich. So here's the thing that gets around it. Lind waives it in writing. um, and it must be signed before any prepayment notice goes out. Uh, if the notice is delivered, there's nothing to negotiate. Um, Lind might do it, it argues here. They get cash in hand today versus 14 months of amortization exposure with a going concern borrower. See, this computer cannot accept that Lynn's rationality, they don't care about this. Lynn makes money if the stock goes bust. So I'm not going to even bother following that reasoning. Number two, buy the note from Lynn. Um, so you never get that clause but you rely on Lynn. And you could negotiate a payoff outside the note. It requires Lynn's signature. So everything goes through Lynn, the great guys at Lynn. Oh, that's what it says here. Every route runs through Lynn. That's the honest answer. The note gives Nextrip no unilateral way to retire it without the 1/3 conversion. The note gives Nextrip no unilateral way to retire the note without the 1/3 conversion. The note gives Nextrip no unilateral way to retire the note without the 1/3 conversion. Whether it costs shares comes down to what Lynn will take in cash to give up the right. My guess is they will. There's almost no amount of cash. Look, they're making hundreds of $1,000s a day with that protection there to their cohorts out of Toronto. So at $1.15, Section 1.42 costs about 1.33 million shares on the 4.6 million prepayment. So, you know, that's probably the worst case is they have to give 1 million shares with a warrant. Um, let's call it 1,000,003, 1,000,004 shares in the prepayment. So it's 2.5 million shares. It's not going to kill us. It just makes me sick that that guy makes money doing this. All right. So we're done with the Lynn note. Now let's go over the uh, Next Trip filing. Today, Next Trip filed on August 26, 2026, a notice that they issued a press release. And here's what they filed with the SEC. But I think it's easier just to read the press release directly. Um, so Next Trip announced um, that it expands Journey New York or Journey TV on YouTube. Wow. Advancing global media and content to commerce strategy. Journey TV builds from nearly 50,000 YouTube subscribers. All right, let me stop right there. That's a big number. That's not going to scare the computers. That's a conceptual thing. There's no hard factual revenue that's going to scare the computers. But it's a good start. It's a lot better than nothing. Maybe it's the predicate for more news. So Journey TV builds from nearly 50,000 YouTube subscribers and 150 shows and videos as Next Trip targets audience growth, advertising, that's going to be our key, and travel commerce opportunities. So out of Sunrise, Florida, Next Trip, a technology forward travel and media company, defining the intersection of Hollywood and Vine, of travel, media, and the creator economy, today announced the expansion of its Journey TV presence on YouTube, extending the company's global travel media and content to commerce strategy across one of the world's largest video and television viewing platforms. I would say YouTube is the largest. Available for subscription on YouTube, Journey TV. All right, I'll go. I didn't know that. The Journey TV channel has an initial audience of about 50,000 subscribers and 150 shows, episodes, and authentic travel videos spanning reality programming, documentaries, and films designed to entertain viewers and inspire their next what? Their next journey. The YouTube expansion adds another audience development channel to Journey TV's growing global media footprint, which is expected to reach approximately 250 million connected TV, mobile, and online viewers globally this year. Now, again, that sounds like a big number. That's not going to scare any of the computer sellers. It's not. It's, it's a nice big broad headline, but it doesn't tell them specifically how they're going to get hit upside the head. So they won't stop, but they will as soon as it does get specific. And I guess this kind of a announcement might be preparatory for eventual specific announcements in the future. So, YouTube targets audience across approximately 80 countries. Actually, it's Journey TV targets audiences across approximately 80 countries and more than a dozen major streaming and video platforms. Nexttrip is exploring opportunities to rapidly expand Journey TV's content and audience across YouTube through long form programming, YouTube Shorts, destination content, and creator collaborations, among other formats. The company believes an expanded YouTube presence can create additional opportunities across advertising, sponsorships, branded destination content, and travel commerce. That all sounds good to we as human beings, but to the computers, they're not as scared at all by that. While supporting Nexttrip's broader strategy of connecting travel inspiration with planning and booking. Be inspired, watch, book, go. Think it, live it, do it. It sounds like a Brian Griffin book. Be inspired, watch, book, go. Strategic highlights. Nearly 50,000 Journey TV YouTube subscribers provide an established audience from which Nexttrip intends to grow the channel. Awesome. That's absolutely awesome. It does not scare the computers. 150 shows, episodes, and authentic travel videos are currently available, supported by Journey TV's broader travel content library. Again, it's awesome. It's not enough yet. It's not enough yet to scare the computers. Journey TV's expanding global distribution is expected to provide access to an estimated 250 million viewers this year across TV, telephones, and online streaming. According to Nielsen, YouTube represented 13% of total US television watch time in April of this year, maintaining the number one position in Nielsen's media distributor gauge. Nexttrip intends to leverage its growing media audience and integrated travel technology to pursue opportunities across advertising, sponsorship, branded content, and travel commerce. Um, YouTube's growing role in television and travel discovery. Journey TV's expansion comes as consumer viewing continues to converge at the intersection of fill in the blank. It continues to converge across traditional television streaming and creator driven digital media. According again to Nielsen's April distributor gauge, YouTube maintained the number one position at the aforementioned 13.4% level. Um, YouTube also reports that shorts average more than 200 billion daily views. That is incredible. That's not going to scare the computers selling because it's a general thing. But when, if and when that can be translated into NextBridge just signed an Next Trip just signed an advertising agreement that represents 1% of those 200 billion daily views, and the revenue starts on Monday. That will change the computers around. The opportunity is relevant to travel. Google found that more than 60% of travelers who use YouTube turn to the platform during the dream and plan their stages of travel journeys, um, including for destinations inspired. and recommendations made from creators and travel influencers. Quote, YouTube has evolved into a major television, entertainment, and discovery platform, particularly for audiences who increasingly decide what they want to watch, when they want to watch it, and which channels and creators they want to follow, said Casey D'Ambra, president of media at Nexttrip. Further quoting, that evolution is highly complementary to Journey TV. We already have nearly 50,000 subscribers and more than 100 shows and videos to build from, along with a much broader travel content library that gives us an opportunity to expand how audiences discover and engage with Journey TV. For Next Trip, the strategic opportunity extends beyond adding another media distribution channel. The company is building Journey TV as a travel focused audience platform that can support multiple potential revenue opportunities while connecting media engagement with Next Trip's travel technology and booking capabilities. Next Trip is exploring a multi format YouTube strategy encompassing full length programming, documentaries, destination features, individual clips, YouTube shorts, creator collaborations, and original Journey TV programming. The company intends to premiere original programming on its owned Journey TV YouTube channel, including the upcoming destination wedding series, I Do, I Don't, I Won't, I Do in Destination. Celebrate before she divorces you. This approach is intended to extend the reach and useful life of the company's content while creating additional audience and inventory opportunities for advertisers. That's the big thing. That's the big thing. Destinations and brand partners. The biggest thing of all is creating content. Advertisers, viewers view content, advertisers pay for viewers. It's all about the content. Quote, our objective um, isn't simply to generate more video clips, quote, D'Ambra continued, quote, it's to build an engaged audience of travel insiders and create multiple ways to monetize that relationship through advertising, sponsorships, and destination and brand partnerships, while ultimately connecting inspired viewers with Next Trip's travel commerce ecosystem. Next Trip's broader content to commerce strategy is designed around a simple consumer journey. Watch, discover, plan, book, go. The new bestseller by Brian Griffin. Watch, discover, plan, book, go. Through its Journey Go Agentic AI initiative, um, I lost my phone rang and I lost my spot. Through its Journey Go Agentic AI initiative and integrated travel booking technology, Nexttrip is developing capabilities intended to help consumers move from travel content and destination inspiration toward trip discovery, planning, and ultimately booking. Quote, travel is uniquely suited to content to commerce because the transaction often begins with a visual moment of inspiration. You see a destination, or experience and think, quote, I want to go there, double unquote. D'Ambra added, further quoting, Journey TV gives us the opportunity to present at the moment, to be present at that moment. The larger opportunity is connecting that audience and inspiration with the technology and commerce capabilities across NextTrip. The company believes the combination of global media distribution, premium travel content, creator driven audience development, advertising, advertising and sponsorship capabilities, and integrated travel technology provides the foundation for differentiated uh, model of business at the intersection of Media Avenue, Travel Street, Technology Road, and Commerce Circle. Consumers can find, watch, and subscribe to Journey TV on YouTube at Journey TV. Remember, Brian Griffin is speaking in your town. Sign up. He will sign your copy of his new book. Be inspired. Watch, scan, book, go. So then there's the About Next trip. I don't see where Patient Swings got that last sentence, but I'm sure it's here. Anyway, we got to read it. We got to read it from his comments anyway, so we don't have to find it. Um, I think I have, but now we'll talk about Finger Motion's press release. And I think Finger Motion is going to start a campaign to try to get to you to buy the stock. Finger Motion CEO Joe Lee Khan issues letter to shareholders. Dear Finger Motion shareholders, it is a sheer joy to be your CEO and to meet you. No, it doesn't say that. It says, Dear Finger Motion shareholders, artificial intelligence is driving demand for computing capacity faster than the power grid can deliver. A completely not for nothing sentence that has absolutely nothing to do with Finger Motion. But let's continue. Conventional data centers take years to build and interconnect. Okay. I didn't read, no, we're reading an article. Finger Motion intends to address this gap all by themselves. Finger Motion intends to address this gap with modular, that sounds like Energy Vault, behind the meter compute infrastructure in North America. Capacity built in stages, sited where power already exists, and matched to a visible demand. Wow, nobody ever thought of that. Since becoming chief executive officer earlier this month, I have been working with our board, management team, and strategic partners to establish a disciplined path into enterprise AI and compute infrastructure market while preserving and strengthening Finger Motion's existing businesses. This letter outlines the opportunity we see and the measured approach we intend to take. The board and management take their fiduciary duties seriously. They do. To whom? To us? Do you mind if I stop right here, put the silence on, and laugh? Can I just take a minute and laugh before I start reading? The board takes their fiduciary duties seriously. Fiduciary, this. Every decision is evaluated against the long term interests of the company Oh, really? Is it really? And all its shareholders. Now, notice that sentence. It is true that the board's duty is to the interests of the company. That's to Julie Kahn and the board and the amorphous idea of what the company is, and to all its shareholders. But that comes secondarily. And as long as they can argue that we made a proper decision process, you can't object. Shareholders are ignored. Our approach emphasizes commercial validation, whatever the hell that means, prudent financing, right, right. We'll see how prudent it is. Like the one you just took with Wydell, clear contractual rights. Oh, are you saying other boards sign deals without clear contractual rights? Julie, you're amazing. Man, you should be CEO. You're going to bring clear contractual rights to contracts at Finger Motion? Julie, Jolie, 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 Jolie. Amazing, Jolie. Amazing. And disciplined capital deployment. What, you're going to pay off Wydell? We will not pursue growth merely to announce larger projects. What the hell does that mean? You're in the middle of announcing your first sentence is the largest project I've ever seen. Jolie, this is your initial sentence. Artificial intelligence is driving demand for computing capacity faster than the power grid can deliver. That's a pretty large project. Conventional data centers take years to build and interconnect. Finger Motion intends to address this gap, but you're not going to merely announce larger projects. You're just going to make a come on sentence and then say you're not coming on. Finger Motion continues to operate in mobile data at 3% or less margin, payment and recharge platform businesses in China. Management remains focused on improving efficiency, cash conversion, and profitability of that platform where you got a lot of room to work with. You got a 3% margin. Maybe you can get it up to 3.5%. Good for you, Jolie. I feel so glad that you replaced Martin Shen. You've got real talent. Our primary focus is a deliberate expansion into modular AI. So it's going to take a long time and high performance computing infrastructure in North America. You just said you will not pursue growth merely to announce larger projects. What could be larger than computing infrastructure in North America? Rather than a single multi-billion-dollar hyperscale campus, we are evaluating smaller modular facilities that can be deployed incrementally in response to contracted or demonstrable consumer demand. Wow, you're so special. This approach is intended to reduce initial deployment development risk and shorten timelines compared with traditional hyperscale projects. What a what a mouthful of crap. A central element is access to reliable, economically attractive power. You know, no one else has thought of this, Jolie. In Western Canada, we are evaluating behind the meter facilities located near natural gas resources. My gosh, you're a genius. I could have had a V8 allowing electricity to be generated and consumed on site rather than transmitted through the public grid. Oh my gosh. So, in other words, you could turn $1.50 natural gas into $12 natural gas. No one's ever heard of that before. If successful, this model can provide greater control over power availability and cost while avoiding many grid interconnection delays. This is like you stayed up late at night, Jolie, and you were late on getting your business model 101 paper in, and you wrote this junk. I know what's coming next. Screwing shareholders. Our first step is in the execution of our plan was the recent acquisition of a 9.9% interest in Liking AI Computing. Oh, you mean before you were CEO? Who's we? Who's we, Jolie? Liken provides access to outsourced cloud compute capacity. So, okay, you use a hyperscaler. That's how you're going to get around relying on hyperscalers. You'll just use outsourced cloud compute capacity, and is developing an integrated enterprise offering that spans compute infrastructure, secure storage, private low latency networking, and deployment support. Many enterprise customers need more specialized infrastructure than retail co-location provides, yet lack the scale to contract directly with hyperscaler operators. That underserved segment is one of the markets we intend to address. What a, I'd give you a C minus on this paper. Progress will be measured against, and that's just because I'm in a good mood, against specific operating and commercial milestones, including continued execution and improved cash management in our existing businesses. Well, you've been on the job 2 weeks. I guess you can improve on how Finger has squandered uh, shareholders' money for the last 3 years, just burned it away without any leadership gambles or bold initiatives to go after the C2 contracts. I'm sure you'll be better. Completion of technical, legal, and financial due diligence on the initial project. Wow, you're going to do that? Man, I'm so glad you put it in writing. Negotiation of a definitive site equipment. Oh, you don't have a site yet? So you're not ready to go? And you don't have the equipment yet? You don't have the hosting yet? You don't have the power yet? You haven't constructed it yet? I'm sure this is going to be quick. Is it going to happen before the Wydell note buries you? Or are you going to come with a reverse split and some massive blinded by the light financing, running the stock up so you and your buddies can churn the stock back down? Is that what you're doing here? Development of a detailed capital budget. Oh my gosh, Jolene, you do everything. You can execute and improve cash management. You can complete technical, legal, and financial due diligence on one project. You can negotiate the site, the equipment, the hosting, the power, and construction. And you were able to develop a detailed capital budget, deployment schedule, and AI hardware. Oh, you haven't even bought any AI yet. And then you're going to confirm that your network connects, and you're going to get permitting, and you're going to get regulatory requirements. I bet that's a quick process up in Canada. Securing customers, you don't even have customers yet. You can do all of this, Jolie? Or is this just a come on to get the stock up so you can cram a financing and then a bunch of your buddies can short the heck out of the stock? You did it with AVAX. Why not do it here? Commercially supportable indications of demand before committing substantial capital, and integration of Liken's enterprise compute capabilities. You own 10% of the company. How are you going to get Liken to do that? And customer pipeline into the broader strategy. What a bunch of crap. That's not leadership. That's just a laundry list. Capital discipline will be essential. Oh, will it? Capital discipline will be essential. So why did your friend sign a deal with Wydell? That didn't show any capital discipline at all, Jolie. The company recently completed financing transactions intended to provide working capital. Yeah, really? That's what you intended? We intend to deploy that capital in stages, aligning major expenditures with completed due diligence, binding commercial arrangements, and identifiable demand. We are also strengthening the leadership and financial capabilities required to execute this strategy. What strategy? You just put up a smorgasbord of sentences. What is your strategy? My background. Here we come to how great you are. My background includes serving as chief executive officer of a digital asset treasury company, AVAX. You ran it from $2.40 to 7.70 and back down to 65 cents. Good for you. So your background includes serving as chief executive officer of a digital asset treasury company, general counsel to one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies in North America, and interim chief financial officer to several NASDAQ delisted companies. So you were the interim CFO. Did that cause the delisting? Were you there to shepherd those companies into default on the contracts, the financing that your backers get their CEOs to sign? Jolie, with experience. You do it all. You should be a Swiss knife. Jolie Kahn, the corporate Swiss knife, structuring complex debt and equity. Man, you do it all, Jolie. Complex debt and equity financing, mergers and acquisitions. Chris Polimeni recently joined Finger Motion as CFO. I wonder, I don't know anything about him, but I hope he didn't join you in some of these other companies that got delisted from that. Oh, it doesn't say delisted. It says NASDAQ listed. Sorry, Jolie. That's just, I guess I got ahead of myself. I just expect that's what's coming. He brings more than 35 years of financial leadership across multiple industries with depth in mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, SEC reporting, auditing, and financial planning experience that he will input that will be important as we establish the financial controls, project evaluation standards, and reporting processes needed for the company's next phase. I can't wait. As a publicly traded company, our shares trade in the open market. Did you have to get an MBA to make that statement, Jolie, or is that just part of your general excellence? I didn't know that. I'm amazed. That never occurred to me before. If a company is a publicly traded company, their shares trade in the open market. Oh my gosh. Let me think about that. That changes everything. As a publicly traded company, our shares trade in the open market. Oh my gosh, I can see why they made you CEO, Jolie. I had never thought of that before. Oh, it's your blanket statement for excusing yourself for signing the Wydell note. Oh, no, wait a minute. You fired the CEO that signed that note, but you and your friends made him sign it. So here comes the blanket excuse. Management does not control and does not have visibility into the identity of buyers or sellers on any given day. Horse manure. You know exactly what's going on, Jolie Kahn. With a woman of your skills, you wrote AVAX now. You know what's going on. Don't get paid and not take responsibility. Don't win the feminist war and not take responsibility. You can't have it both ways. Oh, I'm just a little girl. I can't tell what's going on. I'm a very important CEO and I can do everything. Pick your side there, Jolie. And we do not comment on individual trading activity. Of course not. You'd get in trouble. Our responsibility is to execute the strategy, communicate material information accurately, comply with our obligations under federal securities laws, and work to create sustainable value. You're not going to do it. You'll be able to execute your paymaster strategy and you won't disclose it. You will, I guess, communicate material information accurately. I guess you would call this an accurate communication. Um, Comply with obligations under federal security. That's just to disclose. The only obligation you have under federal securities laws is to disclose. That's the main one you have and work to create sustainable good for yourselves. Credibility must be earned through executions, transparency, and results. Okay, so you're saying that you're going to earn credibility with a statement like this. Management does not control and does not have visibility into the identity of buyers and sellers on any given day, and we do not comment on individual trading activity. That's the beginning of your transparency. Constructive engagement is welcome. Shareholders with questions are encouraged to reach out through investor relations at ir@fingermotion.com. In the coming months, our communications will focus on tangible progress as your share position gets massively diluted, definitive agreements, validated project economics, customer relationships, financing arrangements, deployment milestones, and ultimately revenue and cash flow generation. So we should get involved and wait for that, or we could get cash flow by the end of the year, according to Chris Lacoisier in his post yesterday, 20 million in revenue by the end of the year and next trip. Or how about Railtown ready to go with cash flow? Or how about Total Metals ready to go with discovery and maybe a buyout? We should just wait while you earn credibility. I appreciate the opportunity to lead Finger Motion at this pivotal stage. Pivot on this. Substantial work lies ahead, but the convergence of enterprise AI demand, distributed computing, and behind the meter energy creates an opportunity worth pursuing carefully and deliberately. Yeah, that'll get you out ahead of the pack. There's a bloody race going on, and you're going to pursue it carefully and deliberately. The board and management are committed, or they should be committed, to Lorton to doing that work with financial discipline, transparency, like you've shown here, and a clear focus, like this whole missive has shown. Clarity from the first sentence to the end on long-term shareholder value. So you can never be judged on Weidell's note. Sincerely, Jolie Kahn, Chief Executive Officer and Director. I wonder what her salary is. Investor Relations. Email is ir@fingermotion.com. Everybody should send her an email. And the company's website is www.fingermotion.com. I think I'm going to go start smoking. There's the about Finger Motion. Finger Motion is a technology company serving a growing base of users across the mobile, payment, recharge, and data analytical markets in the People's Republic of China. I thought you're going into data centers in North America. The company continues to develop new tools and services for those users with the long term objective of expanding that base organically into a large and highly engaged community. The community. And this is scale the company believes will support relationships with larger, higher value customers over time. So we're not to judge you immediately, Jolie, as you collect a big paycheck. The company also evaluates emerging technologies for adjacent opportunities. I hope it's adjacent to the intersection of pivot points. Fingermotion is extending that strategy into the enterprise AI and cloud compute market through its equity position in Lycan AI Computing Inc. Under terms of the transaction, the company may increase that position over time, subject to the conditions set out in the definitive agreements. Oh, I feel so great. Forward looking statements. Anyway. Good luck with that. She's going to come at you with a big new financing. The stock's going to run up. It'll go to 70 cents. You'll think it's going to go to 3,000 and you won't get out. But that stock is going to go to pennies. All right, let's go through the comments. It makes me so upset. Unknown Stuntsman, howdy. Chestnut. Good afternoon, William. Hi. Justin Babish, I thought you said you were trying to get home from New York yesterday. Does not look like you were successful. We'll see if I can get out of here tomorrow. Unknown Stuntman, Uncle Bill, how are you? Fast Eddie, here's Billy. Justin Babish, I'm very poor today, so I added 300 to my position. I love that. I love that. Greg, what's up with MMTLP? I don't know. I think the most important thing I heard is that people at Schwab were getting their dividend. At least it was printed on their screens and in their statements. That probably means that Schwab either has enough shares in its block of stock to do so legally, or that Schwab might have contracted to buy shares from the Roth capital offering. That's pure speculation on my part. Or Schwab has gotten some sort of protections for its liability or pre-authorization to stuff clients' accounts with essentially security entitlements, which, by the way, under Bill Clinton's time became the law that under UCC Section 8, when you buy a stock, you're just buying a securities entitlement. So maybe they got an exception or an exemption that they can do that, even though they can't hedge the risk in a publicly traded market. Maybe there's a way of creating a derivative, basically, a synthetic share or a synthetic locate or a synthetic delivery, even though the stock isn't trading. I don't know. It's an interesting uh, breakthrough, though, that at least one brokerage firm went ahead and issued the shares supposedly. I wouldn't trust it. I would try to get those shares delivered to Equinity. I wouldn't leave them at the brokerage firm. But that's the only thing I know that's going on. There's no news that I saw. I didn't look this morning, but I looked yesterday. There was no news. Um, yeah, so I think that's it. I continue to recommend that people should move their shares to the transfer agent. That's my opinion. If there is some sort of, you know, Shangri-La settlement, you'll get the opportunity to join in, but there won't be. There won't be. I think the fact that Schwab is willing to put the dividends into accounts means that their attorneys adjudged the risk of, you know, a squeeze or a buy-in or some punishing uh, settlement as very low. So, one of the reasons I know we've been talking about other ideas in August, and hopefully we can continue to do that. My original commitment with Railtown was only talk about Railtown because it confuses people if I bring other things up. But we all knew, and I think it was very clear to people here that come the middle of July, end of July, through Labor Day, Canada goes on vacation. And, you know, I guess from their high level of performance that they exhibit for the rest of the year, they have to take a long break to be able to come back and maintain that level of excellence. You don't know how difficult it is to go to meetings after meetings, and you got to put them on your calendar. And if you miss one meeting, oh my gosh, you can't miss the next ones. You got to get there early, and you got to stay there late. You got to ask questions, and you got to make sure you read the room correctly so you don't embarrass yourself. And my gosh, the reports that come out afterward, you have to read them, you have to comment, and then you have to initial them, then they have to be submitted into a report. That report has to go to Her Majesty's government, and then it's in the government. That has to go through yet another committee of the whole, and a committee in the hole and the committee without a hole, and then that has to go through a process, and then it goes through Prime Minister Trudeau's desk, but then he gets kicked out and Carney comes in, and we got to start it all over again, and we write some articles, and we have to go to some of the conventions, and then we have to gather the gatherings. Oh, there, that's where all the important work gets done. Why, we had a gathering after happy hour at Joanne's place. Oh my gosh, we stayed there for 3 hours. It was unbelievable. You should have seen what she was wearing. I don't know how she got away with it. Anyway, that's Canada. Um, how does that have anything to do with MMTLP? I don't know, but I would I would transfer to the transfer agent, and I think the idea of a settlement or a big payout in MMTLP will be dragged or dragged out and continue to be dragged out. And the reason that I originally started doing this was to provide an alternative. I think if you sat down and you calculated how much money you lost in MMTLP, for me it was almost $40,000. So in my case, sit down. If I want to make that back, I need to own 10,000 shares of Railtown at $4. And right now I can buy 10,000 shares for $2,500. So you add that to that 40,000. So when the stock goes to four and a quarter, you've broken even. And then you've taken control of your own account. You don't have to wait on attorneys. You don't have to wait on Congress woman uh, Ann Wagner. You don't have to do any of that. You can recover your own account. And that's my point of focusing on Railtown. I think you can make back all the money you lost in MMTOP, and you can add the other stocks together. You can apply that same logic. If you lost $400,000, well, you need to own 100,000 shares of Railtown. It costs you 25 grand right now, or it's a little bit more. Um, 26 grand right now. But when it goes to four and a quarter, 430, you made all your money back. And guess what? 430 is just the beginning of where Railtown could go. So I think that's the action we can each take to recover our accounts rather than waiting on a process that's never going to lead to a payout. That's my opinion. But I don't know any specific news. Chestnut. I got 3,000 of RT today. Wow. Chestnut. Look at that position. Look at that position. That's amazing, Chestnut. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Good job, Chestnut. Justin Babbage. Thank you for your question. Question for next trip. How much will they advertise Journey TV in their platform to get more of an audience so that they can charge more to sell advertising? So, in other words, you recognize that one of their key sources of revenue will be to earn advertising dollars, but you're wondering how much will they put into advertisement to increase the size of their audience to then earn. Okay, that's a good question. I like that question. I think they probably pretty much have a massive audience already, but I don't know the dynamics of travel advertising. But those numbers sounded big, 250,000, or was it 250 million? And then 50,000. Those are big numbers. Michael K4D2Z. William, what is your take on Dolly Parton? Well, I bet she's up in heaven laughing and having a party two doors down. Um, what's amazing is I think I had one of her albums. I think it was that album. And of course she was on the radio a lot. I'm not a big fan of working 9 to 5. I never liked that song. But I like I like um I mean her I Will Always Love You, which I think she wrote for her boss when she quit. Um or her record manager or something. She did it pretty quickly. That's an amazing song. Um, she had several other good songs. Jolene coat of many colors. Um, a couple of others I thought of the other night, and they're not coming in my head right now. But what I liked about her was her sense of humor, and she always took life on, um, saw the best in people. She was willing to make fun of her her bigger points and her lesser points, I guess. But she was always willing to join in the obvious um, uh, points of interest and discuss it. I thought she played along well. She seemed to have a good marriage, although they're coming out with rumors now. I saw her in concert. She's a tiny was a tiny thing, but she was honest about her plastic surgeries and all that. She came from a tough background, really tough, and she made it. And I think she was honest. I think she was good with her audience. I think 80 years old is a good life. I'm sorry she died of cancer. Women usually live longer, but I think she had a great life at the end of the day. And um, it's sad that she died. And, I think we have to get ready for Rod Stewart, Elton John, and a couple of others might go soon. So, on a personal level, it makes you feel old. But I was glad I saw her in concert. I did, for me personally, since you're asking me, I'm glad I did that. Um, but I was thinking about it. It's not like she has any big hit song other than that one and the one I don't like that leap to your mind, although she wrote so many songs. Very talented, very talented. And I liked her voice. How about the one, Here You Come Again? That's all I remember. Here you come again. I guess I'm going to put it. I like that. Even when she was singing sad songs, she had a great voice, and yeah, I'm sad she died, but I'm sure she's in heaven and probably singing to Elvis. Justin Babish, if you do not monetize, then there is less for YouTube to take their share from if you don't monetize. So they don't want to push your content to a wider audience, no new members of our cult. Well, I just always think, Justin, if I monetize, I'm putting you guys through the hell of watching advertisements. If you see advertisements anyway, I might as well monetize. But it's not, I don't know what it is. I don't get enough viewers to make money by monetization. I guess what I need to do is sell merch. Another word I hate. I'll find some merch to sell at the intersection of Gen Z, Gen X, and the baby boomers. Yeah, I should try to get some more members. Justin Babish, I struggle to understand why toxic lenders would want to cause a default on the note. I do get the conspiracy to scam more profit, but not to default. Well, the default, they have all these security claims on the assets, and the default provisions in this note can change the um, payment amount to 120% of the principal. Um, and it changes the VWAP formula to either 80 or 85% of the lowest 3 days. And it forces two things: that all the shares that are sitting at the transfer agent ready to give to Lind Partners will be given to Lind Partners at, if they got it to 82 cents, maybe at 60, even 50 cents a share. And then they run out of those shares, and then the rest is cash. And you're right, because you're an honest man. The amount of money, $5 million, $6 million, by the time they get those shares back, they're just with their buddies in Toronto and offshore, churning. They're probably carving up. I don't think it's going to happen here. I don't think what I'm describing is going to happen with Nextrip. But in other situations, like um, Peter Bords's collective audience and Brent Sun's Logic, I think Aubrey Advisors took out, or it was Chadron, or it was one of their clients. And it's in my opinion, I think they took 150 million out of the market. So why not default it? Because by defaulting it, you're killing the stock price. The stock's gone. It's never going to come back. So all those shares that you force down like a waterfall all the way down, you never have to cover them. And they're doing it with leverage, and they're doing it, they're not, I don't think it's going to happen with Nextrip, but just to use the Nextrip numbers for 5 million dollars, they, if this went on for many months and it went on for the next 2 years, they conceptually could take out tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars out of your pockets and the market. And the 5 million default, and they don't get it all back, cost of doing business. But they also get the benefit in a lot of cases, Justin, like DBMM, HPIL, which and Enview or something, two of Mark Bazil's best efforts. They get a settlement, so they have no legal risk, and the stock essentially goes no bid. So there's no tax, there's no 1099, there's no closing transaction. They don't have to pay taxes. So there's a lot of reasons why going into default helps them. You're thinking as an honest person, just like CEOs do, because CEOs love their own company, obviously, and they love their own paper. They don't understand why Jeff Lind and his compatriots would set up a structure that encourages the destruction of the company. But that's how Jeff Lind and his backers make money, in my judgment. That's where the real money's made. but he'll say, "Oh, we're not doing it." And you know what? I can't prove everything because it's all in the shadows. But how does a group like Lynn Partners go from scuzzy guy, in my judgment, to having self-reported 165 million under management um, in just a few years? Is it because he's talented? I think it's because he's a uniquely gifted liar and manipulator. And of course, that's my opinion. Justin Babish, how can a lender go around putting capital at risk and then try to default the borrower on purpose? Because Justin, let's use the next strip example. As soon as Bill Kirby contacted uh, Philip Valier or Jeff Easton, the minute they did it, Kylie Kim or somebody like her is typing it in. Oh, well, they do 50,000, whatever the cutoff. They do more than 50,000 a day in trading volume, and they've been around and they're on the Nasdaq. They don't care about anything else. What can they steal? So we'll do it. They started selling the stock. If you want to look at the chart, Justin, I showed it to you. Um, they signed this note. They announced the note, I think, when? In July? Just recently. I don't know when they started negotiating the note. It wasn't the day before. But if you look, let me see if I can find it. I have a picture of it here, but I'll see if I can find it to show you. How many months would you say would it take to negotiate all that? Would you say April would be a good time? I would. See the stock of next trip in April, $4 a share. $4 a share. See the um, sort of end of June. End of June's right here. And then I don't know what this was. Maybe that's when they announced it, all this volume. But anyway, Justin, Jeff Lind never put his own money at risk. His client or himself, they sold stock they didn't own from the moment Bill Kirby first talked to him. And as the attorneys are negotiating, they did it in volume. They did it every single day over these months. And then in June, they gave the company's own money. I mean, it would be much smarter if the SEC got out of the way and just let the company do this. But instead, the SEC allows an intermediary like this scumbag, in my judgment, and all the people behind him in Toronto, like the Ensign funds, they sell the stock, Justin. So conceptually, from $4 um, down, 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 down. I'm going to say that middle of July is when it was finally either announced or I don't know why all that volume happened that day, but sort of end of June, beginning of July. So you just from April, that's April, May, June, 3 months. They could have done it if he started talking to them in in January or December, look at that stock price. They could have been selling it down all that time. But my point is, as soon as he talks to them, they start selling stock. Stock they don't own, stock they don't locate, stock they don't deliver, stock they shouldn't sell, stock they sell overseas, stock they sell under the reg show exemption, stock they lie about. They sell over, they say we're long it. What happens? Well, they have a big undelivered position. But what happens to the money? The money sits in their prime brokerage account and they've sold the stock from $4 on downward. And when they finally close the transaction, the stock's trading at $1.45 or $1.50. Well, they've just sold that stock down. They lock into a miserable contract. I think NextBridge is different, but they're just giving the company's own money. They sold the entire market cap of the company down from the first time Bill Kirby spoke to them. Conceptually, if it was over if it had been over $4, from 65 million dollar market cap down to $22 million market cap, approximately, doing it in my head. And all that cash is sitting, and it can't be released until they close out the undelivered shares. It's just sitting in cash. And it came from selling in this case, Next Strip stock from $4 down. When they write the check, it comes out of the destruction of the market cap that happened before the contract was even agreed. It comes with the first phone call. And they start selling it down. And why do they want it to default? Because they don't want it to wake up and bite them in the butt. They hire guys like, in my judgment, like the receiver for GTII to totally wipe out any possibility that it can ever come back. They bury it and they get the tax advantages of no 1099. And so you're an honest man. You see it as, well, they're lending me their money and they have a right to put all these protections. They're just taking, they probably took 10 or $15 million out of the market cap on the way down. In this case, that might be too much because it's a very thin float, but they might have taken 10 million on the way down, and they might have 10 million or 8 million sitting in those accounts. They give 5 million. Well, they don't even give 5 million. They give 3.6 million to NextBridge. It's NextBridge's own money. They already have a profit on it. From the moment they give the money, they've probably at least doubled their money on their legitimate trades, of the money that's sitting in a prime broker. The trades that happen in the shadow over in Toronto or in Frankfurt, Germany, that profit could be much more than that. Well, I have to push back on that because there's no record of it. That's what everybody said. There is no record of it. It happens in the shadows. They are not honest players. They as soon as you talk to them, your company's dead. I think in the case of NextStrip, NextStrip is going to extract their pound of flesh on the way up out of Lynn Partners clients. But they do. Lynn claims to have done this to over 200 companies. I doubt they ever lost money, but if they lose on one, they make it up on all the rest of them. This is a systemic robbery, and it's a dysfunction of our markets. It makes it impossible for new U.S. companies to take on the world, and decision making is concentrated at BlackRock and Red Rock and Over the Mountain Rock and Blue Rock and white and gray rock, and you know, all the people, all the men mostly that run those. Yeah. So Justin, you're just too honest. You're too honest for the world. Pat M. Hi all. Hi Pat. Ward Richardson. Ward Richardson. My father looks down at me, and you said you have no idea how lucky you are. I can't remember my reference. I'll have to ask you what that meant, Ward. Ward Richardson. William, how about doing a live in Times Square, lit up on all the billboards? I could do that tonight. Harbison. Harbison. Welcome. I can't remember. My father looks down at me and said, "You have no idea how lucky you are." I hope I'm not turning into Joe Biden. Welcome to all the new AIP companies: Cavium, Fenway Group, Discrete Stack, Hyperlake, NetZen, AI, Connexify, AI, EV2 3D, Practical AI, and Acme. There should be an Acme AI. Harbison, Pact AI was announced as well. Pact AI brings together three primary groups: enterprises deploying AI on the front lines, including Target and Mount Sinai Health System. Harbison, independent technical experts who measure model behavior like UL Solutions and Apollo Research, and AI insurers like Armilla AI. Ward Richardson, Harbison, was that out today? Oh, I never connected you guys. I'll do that. I'll do it. Ward Richardson, 8 more new disruptive software companies. That's 11 now in the AIP. It's very clear now that RT is building a Canadian version of Microsoft. You said that before. And I guess your point is that Microsoft amalgamated a bunch of software companies into one colossus. Ward Richardson, thanks for the update, Harbison. I have a lot of research to do here. Bob S. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Ward and Harbison, for the updates. Hopefully, we get some positive updates tomorrow from our team. Good point. Tomorrow could be the earnings report, and that'll probably be when I'm doing the interview with Richard Marshall and Bill Kirby. But you're right. After the market closes, we could get an earnings report. That's a good point, Bob. I forgot. Buckeye in Puerto Rico. Hello, Bill and RA too. Was there expected some revenue reporting this week in Railtown? Yeah, I think earnings should be announced maybe tomorrow. Um, it'll be for the second quarter. And they announced, they sort of planted their flag with a PR release in June that they were chasing commercial strategies. So the question and the um, what are those things that they no longer require? Form 7 or whatever. Yeah, anyway, when they had those reports, they said that they finished Rail Engine in January. They completed it. But then they said the same thing in February. So if we assume that they did complete it in February, maybe it got installed along with the rest of the platform and they started generating revenue somewhere, somehow, not with rail tracks, but with Rail Engine and Conductor. Maybe they started that conceptually as soon as the beginning of the second quarter. So my guess is you might see some revenue in the earnings report tomorrow if it comes out tomorrow. But I also wouldn't be surprised if you see zero revenue. I think it's going to be somewhere between zero and maybe 250, 180,000, something like that. It's not going to be a lot because it's reporting the second quarter. And they put out that they're going commercial and hiring WSI in June. So any sales from that are going to start now and onward. They haven't announced any big contracts. So my guess is they didn't do a lot of revenue in the second quarter. So I don't, like I say, it'll either be zero or it'll be under $250,000. It's not going to matter. It's information, but it's not going to change how institutions look at the stock. It may change how it's described, which is important. It could be, it, it'll no longer be a pre-revenue company. That's a big thing. But what's going to matter, what's going to make the stock go up, is when there are definitive announcements. You know, Tellus's new CEO, the leader from RBC and Merrill Lynch, with a career of leadership, finally got permission from the subcommittee on over delayed contracts in his broader committee on commercialization under the board heading of the strategy committee. They finally got approval to actually install and move forward with their contract with NVIDIA and Railtown. That would change it. Or, uh, some other announcements. You know, Railtown signed an agreement with the United States Department of Defense to develop, um, to be the inference layer on forward deployed data centers on battleships to to handle real time information and telemetry with drone attacks to handle drone attacks. Some obviously I'm making that up, but some specific hard banging thing like that would allow an analyst at an institution to go, wow, they just got a contract with the Department of Defense and it's war and it's robotics and they chose Railtown. Let's see how much the United States Department of Defense of War spends on this. How big is that market? How big could it be? How many shares are in the denominator? Let's see what that revenue is. What's the potential margin on those contracts? Wow, they model it, and all of a sudden they start buying Railtown. It's not going to be based on revenue in the second quarter. It's going to be based on what they think the annual recurring revenue that Railtown has as it exits 2027. And we have gone through the doldrums of mid-July to, I think it'll be September 8th. And it might not even start then. But certainly we've gone through a period of complete non-information after well over a year of no meaningful information. I think the commercialization PR piece that Railtown put out, I actually think that was full of a lot of information. But it's not going to stop the computer selling. The way we all are, we we see the good news, but all the computers reading for basically, is an institution going to start buying? That's basically. Is it specific revenue? Is it growing revenue? Is it real hard factual numbers? And then computers might back off a bit. But until then, they make so much money every day. It's just enormous. It's enormous. So we see, June, Railtown put out a good PR piece, but the stock went down. So we say, oh, it wasn't good news. It was good news. But then we're in the dog days of summer right now, and you can't expect any news. I think it's going to come rapid fire. I don't know when. I've tried to get information. I haven't been able to talk to the company or close to the company in a month and a half, 2 months. Um, maybe Tony has information. Maybe you can get it from him. I don't know. But uh, I would say with Railtown, as soon as September, and from then on in, you're going to get a lot of announcements sporadically, but continuously about consulting agreements and engagements with the small and medium enterprises in Canada. And I think once it starts, it's going to get big. And that by itself could be enough to get some institutions buying. I've given up on TELUS. I don't think TELUS has the ability to build a company, or they're kind of like, you know, uh, finger motion, a lot of opportunity, but they just execute on the safe stuff, not on the, bet the company stuff. And so I don't think TELUS's deal's going to go anywhere. But I do think, but I don't know that. Nobody's told me that. But come on, how long does it take to get that done? But I do think the Buzz Hive Digital is real because Tom Core puts it up so much. And I think that's huge. I think it's much bigger than TELUS, much bigger. And I don't care if TELUS drifts to the last place and goes out of business. Um, you know, go woke, go broke. But I think Buzz Hive Digital's out of Texas, and they don't have those constraints. Down there, they get her done. And I think they're going to get her done. And I think that could be your first announcement that shocks everyone, is some sort of Buzz Hive Bell Canada deal. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Carney finally gets something done. Uh, maybe that there's some sort of government announcement. Particularly, what I'd look forward to is government funding in the AIP network, with digital being the spearhead of it. And what would be exciting is if they could not only fund those companies, but if AIP Partners, which is now Railtown, could actually get enough funding without issuing shares to start consolidating and rolling those ownership of those companies up into Railtown. That could be exciting, and that I think that could start coming. Um, I can't really think of anything else. You've got Uniserve, the Buzz Hive. The Buzz Hive could lead to could lead to Sweden, Paraguay, and maybe a couple of other countries too. So I think there's a lot there. I've only got 10% left, so I better keep going. But yeah, Buckeye, I think there'll be revenue small. Ward Richardson, Salesforce, great earnings release after the bell. Salesforce is up $30. Oh my gosh. So you're saying the the AI bubble isn't over? You're right. Salesforce is up $27 after hours at $232. That's great news, Ward. Reinvigorate Doldrum. Reinvigorate Doldrum. Do you think there's a quiet period for real time? I don't know. I'm tired of arguing. Yes, it's effectively a quiet period, but technically, no. Quiet period, by definition, talks about earnings and corporate actions like a merger or an acquisition. Yeah, right now it might be in a quiet period because earnings might come tomorrow night. But um, quiet period also refers to bidding on baseball players in some contexts. But other than that, no, it's not really a quiet period. But what I think reinvigorated Doldrum is that from February 11th of last year, when they announced the AIP deal, all the way to um, TELUS deal and onward, I think big investors who talked to Canaccord Genuity, who were pitched the deal, who were who and lawyers and advisors who were pitched the deal. I think all those big investors had to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that may have included non-standstill agreements or non-purchase agreements. I don't know what the word would be for a lawyer, but I have a feeling that dozens, if not 100 different investors had to sign agreements that they would not act on the information they received from directly from Railtown and the AIP partners and from TELUS, which meant they could not buy. Is that a quiet period? I have no idea. I also think that the government probably said to anybody applying for funding, you better not talk to anybody. Is that a quiet period? I have no idea. But I think effectively, there's a lot of buying that's been put on hold. And there, I think right now what's going on with Railtown are, I would say, somewhere between 10 and 20 contracts, big, I think, awaiting lawyers' work. And remember, these lawyers, unique to their profession, for the first time in hundreds of years, the skill level of these attorneys is so beyond exceptional that they have to take big holidays to make up for it. So I don't think the delay is with Railtown. I don't think Railtown can talk about a contract Railtown has with the government. I don't think Railtown can talk about a contract it has with TELUS. I don't think Railtown can talk about whether or not it is the orchestration layer on Bell Canada or whether or not Railtown is involved with BuzzHive Digital. I don't think Railtown can announce, I mean, dream of dreams, that they have some sort of contract with one of the big infrastructure companies in North America, like Brookfield or BlackRock. I don't think they can announce they have a deal with the Department of Defense. I don't think they can announce that they have a deal maybe in England or Germany or the UK or Sweden until the deal is signed, but until the government gives them permission. Is that a quiet period? I have no bloody idea. If you want to get tied up in definitions, technically, if you were to ask Corey Brandolini today, he probably is in a quiet period. But outside of the earnings, if you asked him, he'd say no. But he couldn't tell you why he's saying no. He can't let on that there's big news. See, he's constricted in all sorts of ways. The selling, they can sell every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. They can sell offshore, they can sell here, they can do it in the lit market, they can do it in the dark market. And then at the end of the day, they can true it up. They can lie to the SEC and say, hey, we're not long. And you keep looking for honesty. There isn't any honesty. There's just lawyers covering up lying. And I would argue the lawyers are lying then. You know, no one cares. Lying is fashionable. If you make money, you must be a good person. Um, I think what would blow it away? What if Railtown, it's hard to create a hypothetical, but what if Railtown got a contract on a data center in Sweden with Hive, and that was announced? That'd blow everything away. But you ask if it's a quiet period. Have you heard any news? Maybe they have no news. Maybe there's no news. Maybe it's all been a lie. Maybe there's nothing going on at Railton. And the reason they don't say anything, maybe what it is it isn't a quiet period. I mean, everything in Canada is quiet because they don't do anything up there. But maybe maybe it's just a period of a lot of vacations, cashing the checks, showing up to the office, having coffee at 10:30, going to lunch at 11:30, coming back at 1:30, having a meeting, going for happy hour, coming back at 6, cleaning the desk, going to the gym, going home, coming in at 5:30, and nothing's happening. Maybe you nailed it. Maybe there's nothing going on at Railtown. But I stick with my interpretation. Major investors had to sign NDAs. Major contracts are pending signatures and approval of the big, thick documents by attorneys on the other side. And those attorneys are currently on vacation. So Railtown is trapped. They can't announce anything until it's signed. Railtown is trapped if it's government. They can't announce it until the government says so. Railtown is trapped to the extent they're doing business with TELUS or Hive or BCE because they got to wait for those companies. I don't know. Do you call that a quiet period? I don't want to call it a quiet period. I want to call it a non-quiet, quiet period. It's just, it's endless waiting. And the computers keep selling. So people who are skeptical say, nothing good's happening. The stock price is not reflecting the fundamental value of Railtown. The sellers don't even read a research report on Railtown. They don't even call and ask for an update. They check out 2 or 3 things, and you can ignore all those things. It boils down to when do institutions start buying? And I think there's institutions out there that are precluded from buying because they had access to material non-public information. And if they were to buy the stock, they and the company could be subject to class action lawsuits saying that Mrs. Um, uh, what's a common Canadian last name? Uh, Mrs. Elk would have purchased shares in Railtown had she known that material information, or she would have sold shares in Railtown had she known that material information, or she would have held her position in Railtown instead of selling it had she known that information. So those buyers have to wait till news is released. If you don't want to call it a quiet period, don't call it a quiet period. But it acts like one. Ward Richardson, building the constellation software of the AI age sure feels like that's the plan. Ward Richardson, yes, I agree. It's certainly very clear now. All together now. All together now. Let's see if there's any news on Railtown tonight. And then I'm going to sign off and try to do anything. Anything. Oh, I see Railtown. Oh, it's down a little bit. Sorry. Pause for the class. No news. No news on Railtown. Um, anyway, I don't know what else to say. I think if we can just make it to September 8th, I think things are going to get strong in Railtown. I like that Ward pointed out that Salesforce is up $30. Um, I think with a couple of bits of good information and maybe a $2 trillion Anthropic float, the excitement of capital coming back in AI in September, October, and November will lift all boats. And I think it's going to get really exciting soon in Railtown. I think on next trip, the interview tomorrow is going to be great. I think you're going to find out. I don't know this, but I think you're going to find out. Well, it would be better to say I'm hoping that we find out that there's some sort of codicil or addendum to the contract that allows Next Trip just to buy that whole bloody thing out of the way once whatever news needs to be released is released, so that some of those deep-pocketed insiders can um, um, actually buy without the risk of violating insider transactions laws. Um, so I think that's all I have to say for tonight. From New York City, this is so valuable in New York City. This would be one backyard in DC. I used to have a backyard like this, wider, but this is so valuable to have. It's amazing. New York's amazing. So I wish everybody well. And Ward, I may try to do something from Times Square. Peace out.